Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Please check us out online at couplesynergy.com or on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Couple Synergy. And please subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couple Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experience helping thousands of couples transform their relationships for over 25 years.
Everyone says you should work on your relationship, but nobody teaches us how. So we've created this podcast to teach people what they can do to create the relationship they've always dreamed of
with the partner they fell in love with. On today's episode, we welcome James and Angela. Thank you so much for being on our podcast today in person.
Oh, yeah.
Yay. Hello.
Hello. Yes. And I think this is the second podcast that we have recorded actually in the saloon.
Yep.
Right. So this is fun. It requires me to get out a lot more equipment.
Yes, it does.
It's quite the production.
Yeah. Quite a production.
Great.
So we want to get into your story, but before we do that, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves? How old are you? What do you guys do for a living? And how long have you been together?
Ladies first.
All right. I'm Angela. I'm 46 years old, and I currently am a service coordinator at an electric company, and I also do professional music with a band in Denver, and been doing that for a really long time. And I'll let him talk about himself.
Well, I'm James. I'm 39. I'm about to be 40. Mm-hmm. I am a retired veteran, disabled veteran. I pretty much live a retired lifestyle, semi-retired life. I work here and there when needed, but...
And how long have you guys been together?
6 years.
Yep.
In May.
Been married. This year will be our third wedding anniversary. Mm-hmm. So that is in March. So that'll be fun.
And, we have a passion for veterans and, everything that goes with that. I lost my cousin's son committed suicide after he got out of the military. And we've done several podcasts on military service. So I hate saying thank you for your service because I don't like it when people say that to me. I don't know if you like it or not. It's kind of hard to understand that phrase.
Yeah, no, it's just I've accepted that that's what people say, and I know what they mean. I know it's in the heart. And so, yeah, no.
So can you tell us the story of how you guys met?
Yeah.
Here's your chance. He says he tells it better, so I'm going to let him tell it. How about it, babe?
I've only ever told this story once or twice because she's usually the talker out of the both of us. But yeah, I'll go for it. So we met as seasonal state park employees for the state of Colorado. I was a state park ranger, and Angela was a front gate attendant. Mm-hmm. At the time we met, Angela had a boyfriend. Mm-hmm. And so we spent the first couple of weeks just being co-workers, I guess. And then, but Angela broke up with her boyfriend, and I saw my in. And, I asked her out with all confidence, knowing she was going to say yes.
I thought I was going to say no because I knew it was coming, but
she
really
likes
thought
to
I was going to
say
no.
she was going to say no.
I really was.
We had Angela, as part of me being a park ranger, I had to spend a whole day in the front booth.
Whole day meaning 10 hours.
10 hours.
Yes.
And locked in a 6x6 little booth with Angela.
With a little fire.
And we talked the whole time. We got to know each other really well. Really well. She has had the boyfriend at the time, so it was all very cordial and friendly. But I was, I really like this woman. This is somebody who's very interesting. We had a lot in common. She was very easygoing, very sociable. I got to see how she interacted with other people as 300 people came through the gate that day. and it's in that, by the end of that day, I knew like this is worth getting to know. And so I wanted to pursue a relationship with her. And
So you knew right away.
I knew right away. Oh yeah. Yeah. I knew right away.
And
I
was
really
breaking up with your boyfriend, that wasn't a factor of
No,
James.
no.
Okay.
I had already, before I met him, I had already been having some issues in that relationship and things that I had already talked to our full-time ranger about. She was one of my mentors there, and I had been volunteering at the park all winter already, and so I already knew everybody there really well, and just turned into a seasonal employee to get paid for my work instead. I had already been talking to her about how that wasn't working out for different reasons. Really great guy, another veteran, but just not the right guy for me. And that was kind of the feeling. And finally I was like, you know what, I'm just going to call this off before we can't be friends, because he was a cool guy. So I called it off, and that was good. And my best friend took me, she was my best friend and my roommate at the time. She took me out for dinner and was like, I'll bet you dinner that somebody's going to ask you out within 2 weeks and you'll be just fine. And I was like, I'm not taking that bet. And she said, why not? And I said, 'cause I already know who's going to ask me. I already had a feeling. But I wasn't really interested in him, honestly. Like it didn't click with me at all immediately. But there was something about him that was cool because of all that time we spent. So I was like, he did ask me out, and I was like, I remember we were just standing there in the park. I was getting ready to leave for the day, and he asked me, and I was like, okay, cool. And the fact is that he took me on a hike with my dog on our first date, and that kind of sealed the deal right there. And we were pretty inseparable from that moment on. I kept him for margaritas. We got done with our hike, and we were like, we're not done hanging out. Let's go to Mexican food and margaritas. And so that's what we did. And then I Huck Finned him into coming and helping me spring clean my garden the next day. And then we just, literally every
Did you
chance
say
we had-
Puck Finn?
Huck Finn.
Huck Finn.
Oh,
Yeah,
Huck Finn.
Huck Finn.
What's a Huck Finn?
Yeah. And we've just been inseparable since then, honestly. I mean, yes, we've spent time apart, but 2 weeks into our relationship, we went on a backpacking trip together, and that was it. That was like really our first kiss and everything too. So it was just really nice.
What was that time period when you first met, and then when you asked her out for the first time?
Oh, everything about our relationship was quick.
Probably a month at the most, because I was probably with that guy for about 2 or 3 weeks when I met you. And then he asked me out. I remember it was 1 week after I had broken off with my other boyfriend, and we were getting checked out, and he asked, so how's it going? I was like, oh, I broke up with him. And the other ranger that was there just like immediately turned to him, and I was like, here we go. But he didn't ask me out yet. He still was.
Well, our first date was
cool
on
about
May
it.
20th,
Mhm.
and being seasonal employees, I would have started around the 1st of May.
So about 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks. Everything about our relationship was very fast. But there was just something about it I knew all the way around. I knew even before I got the job, I had this like, I could meet somebody at this place. I was in a spot in my life where I was finally ready for a relationship. I had been single for years, dealing with the military stuff from 3 tours of Iraq. You got a lot to deal with. And I dealt with it by myself, which was the wrong way to do that. And then, but, after years of that and finally reaching some self-forgiveness, I was ready to maybe let somebody else into my life. And the first day of work when she was there, I was standing at the back door, and there was a little glass there. I hadn't met her yet. I was getting ready to walk in, and I see through the door, and I see this, ooh, blonde. I really like blondes.
And that was like the one day that I did my hair and makeup. I never did my hair and makeup when I went to work. I was wearing a hat or something. So.
Who would have known that blonde would have ended up being so cool and being my future everything?
No.
Was the feeling that you had, that instant feeling, that knowing she was your person, had you ever had that before?
I've always fallen fast. I've always done that.
He makes decisions in general.
All my decisions are fast. I follow my gut.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's my gut. I think it's the Lord personally, but I like to follow what I feel. And after our first date, I had some roommates, and I walked in the door and I plopped myself on the couch. They said, "How was it?" And I said, "I'm going to marry that girl." It's one of those stories.
Yep.
I knew.
You'd be surprised how often we hear it,
Yeah.
you know. So what was it about each other that you fell in love with?
My favorite thing about him is he makes me laugh. Like, he can be so ridiculous, but most people don't see that. He's a very quiet, and he's an observer. He really notices people and really watches people and pays attention and everything. And he's just very intellectual that way. But man, when he does say something, it's hilarious. Like, even people at work, when he was working as a manager at a shop, he was like, that's the thing that people loved about him. You wouldn't expect it necessarily, so it was nice. But from day one, he made me laugh like all the time, which I love. It's the best.
I've always loved her confidence and her outgoingness. She has certain attributes that I don't, I guess, and I have attributes that she don't. I guess that's how relationships go.
Yeah.
But
We really complement each other.
we do
that
complement each other.
Mhm.
She had an independent streak to her. She's a strong, independent woman who doesn't need me, but chose to be with me.
That's nice.
Those are the best kind. I'm thinking about, our beginnings, and we used to sit late at night after work chatting.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had a son, so you can't just go date,
Right.
So we had many months of that before we
And
actually figured out how
and
to be
our
together.
beginning was pretty quick,
Mhm.
as well. I mean, it's just that intensity of, getting to know someone and talking and spending a lot of time, really understanding a person. So it resonates.
Yeah.
How did you know that you were ready for a relationship at that time? Because you said you struggled for quite a while.
Yeah,
right?
I think to love somebody else, you have to love yourself. And I didn't even like myself for years. But after coming to a period of self-forgiveness and kind of a self-understanding of what I'd been through that had made me me, and realizing the man I was going to be. I finally realized the man I was going to be. And I like that person. I think I'm a good guy. And I was just ready to experience my life with somebody else.
And how old were you at that time?
33.
Yeah, I think there's things you can't know until the different decades bring different ways of viewing the world and what's your values are. And
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was different in my 30s and in my 20s, that's for sure. But I had already, when I was 33, I'd been out of the military at that point for 11 years. That's how long it took me.
wow.
Yeah.
So, when a relationship starts, we really see that as the starting line. Because usually that's, now, talk about facing demons and things like that. That's when we really start facing our own demons.
With that mirrored reflection.
With
of
the
your
mirrored
partner.
reflection of your partner, right? And so, in entering this relationship from the beginning, what were some of the challenges you guys faced right off the bat?
For me, it was actually, I don't even really know how to explain it. I loved and hated at the same time the way that he would ask me a lot of really great questions. Up to that point, I had been dating, I'd been divorced for 4 years, and I was ready also. But he would ask me all these really big questions that made me think really hard. And that was like, I don't want to think that hard. I just want, but in that, I got to know him as well. And it was really eye-opening to have that person that actually is asking these questions because they care and they actually want to know the answer to it. It was how we learned each other. Made me realize that I needed to ask some of those same questions, and was just really natural too, in a way. And once I understood where that was going, it wasn't nearly as frustrating. And now I love that part about him.
Was there any question that really stood out that was pivotal?
No, nothing really. I mean, I remember little ones like, what are your favorite colors? I said cheerful ones. made it easy, and he didn't buy me flowers again for like 4 years. Like, I don't know what took so long. I thought he was asking that question for a reason, right? But he just didn't. I remember him asking how I felt about pet names. Like, and my answer to him was, it has to be natural. Like, I don't want it to be stupid or sugary or sweet or schmoopy. Yeah. But now we call each other babe. Like, I have to think about his name.
Somewhere along the
half
line,
the
we
time.
started calling each other my babe.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet on the outside to other people, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
but she's my babe.
Yep. So, but little things like that, but nothing really specific besides those.
We don't have pet names.
No, thanks.
I think I used to call you Hun just because of the Ray Ramin thing, depending on who was around.
Right.
But that was about it for
Yeah.
that reason.
I
Yeah.
tried calling you Jeannie.
Yeah, it never stuck.
Just never stuck.
My dad and several of people on my dad's side of the family call me that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting. Like from childhood, a couple people call me that.
Right.
It didn't never sticks.
No.
So how would you guys say that, being a little bit older than, 20 something when you guys are forming this relationship, that the previous relationships you had have influenced you or help you grow into becoming this and to be able to have a more mature relationship?
Well, I did have a prior marriage while I was in the military. That was short, quick, and fast. In between Iraq deployments, the military kind of incentivizes you to get married. They give you more money, they give you different benefits, and so everybody's deploying. They go run off and get married real quick. So I was one of those.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They give you quite a bit more money just for being married.
Wow.
And I thought I was in love, but that was another fast relationship. Her and I only dated for about 6 months before we got married. Long distance the whole time. I went to Iraq. The marriage did not survive one deployment, but out of that, we got a beautiful son. So we got Riley. He is 18 years old now, getting ready to go off to college.
Crazy.
So Angela's been a great stepmom, but that's a different story. But that marriage really put me in a resentful spot towards women, and I was cheated on in that relationship, and so I was very untrustworthy, and so that's what led me to not having girlfriends over the next couple of years.
So you were cheated on and you became untrustworthy or untrustful.
Untrustful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
I
Yeah.
was like,
Untrustful.
Untrusting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was married for 11 years in my first marriage and together with him for 13. From when I moved out to Nashville, I met him pretty quickly after I moved there and fell in love and all of that. And then 13 years later, it just wasn't working anymore and came back. I also was cheated on in that relationship, although I didn't know it until after it was over. But that's why for 4 years I dated. But when you're in your late 30s, that's pretty hard road to go. And along with what he said earlier about you have to love yourself before you can love someone else. It's even true if you're not a veteran. Like, that was a big part of it. I had to learn what it was that went wrong. It wasn't just my ex-husband's fault. It was partly my fault that didn't work too. So finding out what those reasons were and just growing on your own and knowing that and learning to love yourself through all of the bad stuff that you have done or anything, then that helps. But I think that's the biggest thing. It's what everybody calls maturing, but in so many relationships, you actually mature together through all of that because a lot of people are married in their 20s and whatnot. But just a little bit different, for me. But
yeah, a lot that we teach is you have to become the person you want to spend the rest of your life with.
mm-hmm.
And I think in your 20s, you're looking at what you can get. And then as you get older, it's like, my life is good. I'm good by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's not adding to it,
Yeah.
So, we don't look so good on paper. When we met, you were 24 and I was 30 with a 9-year-old, 10-year-old. How was the age difference for you guys? Was that ever a factor?
Not
No.
really. Honestly, when I was dating, I had a hard time finding guys my age that could keep up with me, to be honest. And like, just speaking, like I do a lot of hiking and backpacking and hunting and
Mm.
everything, just physically very, very active. Always have been. I did my first triathlon when I was 39. I said I have to do one before I turn 40. So I did. And there would be so many times I would try to share that part of my life with other people. And if they were my age, they just hadn't taken care of themselves as well, or just weren't interested in it, or, something like that. And so that was a big part of it, that he really liked what I liked too. And we could actually share that part of it with each other. I did solo backpacking trips all the time and everything. It was just a big part of who I was. And then for him to be able to do that with me was pretty huge. But other than that, the big thing, because he grew up over in Czechoslovakia area, a lot of the things that he remembers are different from me, but not necessarily because of the age gap, but because of the geography.
I was removed from
Mm-hmm.
pop culture for 7 years of my life living
Yeah.
over there. That does have something to play with it, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it might be a little cliche to say, but I guess I'm an old soul.
Mm-hmm.
I've always just been that way. From life experiences, I guess, kind of turn you into who you are, right? And
Mhm.
so,
Yep.
I'm an old soul, and she's a young dork. We get along very well.
So you meet in the middle.
We meet
He's
in
an
the
old
middle.
dork. Yes, we're both dorks.
The only
For
time
sure.
that the age really comes up is when she'll be jamming to some like 80s song, and I'm like, this is the worst thing ever.
I hear ya.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, and I think with that comes also what is actually my most favorite trait about him, and what drew me to him to begin with, is his quiet confidence. He's one of those people that you want to get to know, but he's not showy about it. He's not trying to show off about it. He's like, I am who I am, and then you get what you get, and if you don't like it, too bad. Like, he doesn't care. And I love that about him. And it's really helped me a lot, because as a performer and an entertainer, most of my adult life, that matters. Like, you have to show it to everybody, right?
Right.
You have to be outward about it and everything. And he just isn't. He's inward about it, but he shares it with me still. And it's just in a different way, which is really cool.
I could imagine if both of you were performers and
Ugh,
entertainers
it would
and trying to
it
get
would not be good.
attention.
That was my first marriage. He was a guitar player.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, it was,
Got it.
it was definitely a different vibe. But just having that to show me that other way of doing things is really nice too.
At the beginning of our relationship, the fact that your son lived with you, right? So it was a topic, it was a conversation, it was something that we had to, really
It was a lifestyle.
make a decision about. Yeah. It was a lifestyle.
Mhm.
I don't know if Riley was living with you at the time you guys met, but when did you guys have to have that conversation?
Yeah, I had him on weekends, and but we introduced them very shortly. It was a quick introduction.
At work.
At work, she was working the front gate. I was going to go on a hike with him, so why not go there? Took him through the front gate. They met for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Took the pressure off of that.
Did he know who she was at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. Not just a coworker, but
He would, because for years he'd been saying, "Dad, you need a girlfriend." So it's finally nice to tell him, "Son, I got a girlfriend." But being as that I knew that she was probably going to be the one that I was going to spend the rest of my life with, they started hanging out quite early.
Mhm.
He definitely, you'd have to talk to him, but I think he had a, who is this woman type of thing. They went off one time to go Christmas shopping together without me. It's the first time I think they'd ever hung out together.
It was, yeah.
And they both came back and were not liking each other.
It was not fun. Well, he's not a shopper. He was the typical teenage boy. Hated shopping, and he just made it very
Wasn't the
not
thing
fun.
to do together for
Yeah,
your first
not our
outing.
first- yeah, not a good thing to do as our first outing. But I think
How old was he at the time?
13.
13.
He was
Yep.
13.
Yeah, he was 13.
Yep.
But very shortly after we were together, his family ended up moving around the country. His stepfather's in the oil field, so they move frequently.
Mhm.
So we had to transition into a long distance relationship, which was hard. It is hard. You see your son five times a year for a couple days here and there.
Mhm.
But I think Angela and Riley, they have a good relationship. She's a great influence on him. She plays a role in the family that nobody else can. She tells him that, like, how it is. He comes to her for advice. She's not going to sugarcoat it. She's going to tell him. I think that she's played a great role in him coming out of his social awkwardness and turning into a little bit of a social butterfly almost, and he doesn't call her mom. He's never called her mom. He tried once. Yeah. He said mom, and then he stops. He goes, doesn't sound right.
We're at Costco, and I did not answer. So
yeah.
I've never been called
so
that.
Just realized that wasn't going to happen. But she's
okay.
she's Angela to him, and he's Riley to her, and that's enough.
Yep. So I'm glad that I'm that person for him. When he has the hard questions, a lot of times he'll see what I think, and I let him have his own thoughts, but I just ask him why and kind of push a little bit more with it. And I think that's how I was raised. My parents were very big on that. They don't care how you vote or any of that kind of stuff. Just they want to know you thought about it and why, and make a point, kind of a debate club kind of thing. So, but yeah, we're also the ones that get in trouble. We have this video of us in Walmart with dinosaur helmets or masks on, and Riley and I are like sword fighting with each other, and James is like, children, stop. And so we definitely have a good time still.
Yeah, I think step parenting it's a really awesome position to have that you don't have to have. And I always say step parents, step in and step up. And you have been a huge influence on Alex's life, and he would not be the person he is today without you. It's very cool.
I appreciate that. And he never called me dad either.
No,
he called me Ray. But it's a very different kind of role. It's kind of like a friend, mentor. It's a very
an awkward balance, especially at first, for sure. I really it took me probably a couple years to really feel comfortable in the role, to maybe even 3 years before I really felt like that to him. I never felt like the mom influence of any sort, more like the cool aunt. That's what I am to all my nieces and nephews. Since I don't have kids, all my nieces and nephews love me like that. But I never let them get away with stuff either. I was the cool aunt, but I wouldn't let them get away with stuff either. So
I think you guys got to know each other when with the driving. So Angela taught Riley to drive.
Okay.
He just did not care. He didn't want to get his license. He would still just not care. But Angela had a bum knee at the time. She'd gone through a surgery, just couldn't get around so well. And Riley was there for our summer visit. He got in his hours.
He sure did.
Angela's the one that taught him to drive, and that's when they bonded.
Yeah.
I think car time is the best bonding time for anybody.
Yeah, anytime you're trapped.
I was with him on the first time he was ever on an interstate. I was with him the first time he had to figure out going from one interstate to another, going through the interchanges in Denver, of all places.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun. And I made him drive to his dad's shop one day. And that's quite an interesting drive all the way from Boulder. So it was a good one.
Now, how long were you guys together before you got engaged?
Well, 3 years technically. We were engaged for 2 days, basically.
From our second date. So our first date, we went on the hike. Our second date, we went back. It's our second date.
It was 2 weeks.
A third date. It was our third date. We talked about that.
Go.
It was our third date. We went on a multi-day backpacking trip together. And so that's really when we were inseparable ever since then. We pretty much just moved in together after that. From our third date. And so we actually officially moved in together only after dating
6 months.
6 months. And then we lived together for about 3 years, 2.5 years.
2.5, yeah. Well, and then what had happened, we had our 3-year anniversary coming up, and we wanted to go back to the same place that we went on our first backpacking trip. It's this really beautiful place with a little lake. There's no trail to it. You have to bushwhack all the way through. And that was where my dog Motown had accepted him in my life too, And so we were taking Sarah, our current dog, with us, and he was gone by then. But I came back, and my favorite was calling my sister-in-law and saying, we thought he was going to ask me to marry him on that trip. is what we thought. And then turns out we just ended up getting married on that trip. And
Oh.
So in Colorado, you do not need an officiant for a wedding.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
go off and get married yourselves.
Yep.
So I was going to surprise her completely, but I needed her to come get the marriage license with me from the courthouse.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm not getting married at the courthouse. I draw the line there.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that's not the plan.
Yeah. So we went back there backpacking, and we had a beautiful wedding. We wrote our own vows,
Mhm.
set up a camera on a little tripod we had, got all our own little pictures, and had an amazing wedding back there just by
Mhm.
ourselves. And then spent the next 2 or 3 days back there camping,
Fishing.
fishing, exploring the area.
So you didn't know that he was
Not
gonna-
until 2 days before
2
we
days
left.
before.
Okay.
Yeah. So on our actual dating anniversary was when we went to the courthouse and got our marriage
the certificate.
license.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to tell anybody. So like we knew that that was on a Thursday, and on Saturday we were actually going to just get married.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've been married twice, but never actually been proposed to. So that's always been fun.
She made it very clear the whole time dating she wanted to be proposed to.
Mhm.
You know, but after 4 years of living together, I was like, I just want to get married. Let's get married.
Yeah. And it was perfect. No worries, no, guest list, no catering, none of it. It was perfect. Wait, I packed a nice dress.
I bought a shirt from Walmart, got a haircut.
Yeah.
So talk about the vows. How did you decide, and what was important to you when you guys were exchanging vows?
We kind of plagiarized in a way. We took the vows from all the different Christian sects, some Presbyterian vows, some Lutheran vows, Catholic vows, and merged them all into what we liked. Took the good parts
Put in
out
a
of
little
them and
adventure.
put in a little
vows
bit
in
of
there,
our
too.
own writing in there
Yeah.
too, a saying that we liked. And it's kept it short enough, but it's got all the
Could I tell
all
you
the
what they
good
are
stuff.
right now? I
Sure.
could not.
Yeah, you don't
no,
know.
Oh,
no
you
way,
couldn't.
no
They're
way.
hanging in our house though, above
Yeah,
our
we have it
couch.
hanging up. I read
Yeah.
it now and again and get
Yeah.
teary-eyed still.
But yeah, it was a lot of the same things that you hear until death,
Till death
do us
do us
part,
part.
all that.
Made sure that since we didn't have an officiant, and we are both religious people, we wanted it to be under God's eyes. So we made it very clear that I take you as my wife, because God is our witness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the only person who was out there besides us was God.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It was neat.
Yeah.
So then I came back, told my sister-in-law on the phone, on speakerphone. I'm like, well, you know how this weekend was our anniversary? And she said, yes. And I was like, well, he did not ask me to marry him. And she starts cussing up a storm. She's getting mad. She's like, I'm going to kill him.
She's
blah,
got a
blah, blah.
temper.
She has a bit of temper. We love her. And then I was like, but wait, we did get married. She's like, oh my goodness, I was going to kill you. She was so happy. And then my mom and my dad, everybody's like, that's just so perfect. That's so you guys. That's the perfect way. And then everybody wanted to have a party. So we actually rented some space at a ranch up in Wyoming and invited everybody with their campers and just did like a little camp out get
Celebration.
together celebration. It's like the reception or whatever. So that was fun.
That's kind of cool. I think that the engagement ends up being that for many couples, certainly for us.
Mhm.
That's the private
Mhm.
commitment,
Mm-hmm.
and then the wedding is, what does your dad always say about a marriage is between two people, but a wedding is
Mm.
two families.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Yep.
So that's cool. Very cool.
It was fun.
Now, you both said that you guys came into the relationship with trust issues
Mhm.
from past relationships, both being married before. How did you navigate that in your relationship?
I think initially there was just an understanding because we were very honest and upfront about it with each other. We didn't hide it. We didn't, we had very good conversations. That's something that's really great with us too, is that
Hmm.
we can literally talk about anything, even the hard stuff, and still feel safe saying
Mhm.
what we need to say to each other, which is huge. Definitely something I had not had before. And I think a certain point of your life with the maturity just comes the aspect of, I'm going to tell him, and if he doesn't like it, then I'll deal with the consequences, just because you don't want to live like that again.
Mm.
And so what was great is that because of that and having that upfront conversation, we're able to trust each other and know that we're never going to do that to each other. And it's hard for him, especially right now, because I go to Denver once every other month or so, sometimes once a month, to go do shows with a band. He's never met any of the guys in that band. So it's a little awkward and hard for him.
Something I struggle with probably still.
Yeah.
Is it's not that I don't trust her, but the broken trust in my past, and man, being in the military, I've seen what guys are capable of. So I don't trust guys, that's for sure.
In a bar around alcohol.
Oh yeah. And so
live music.
And that's where she is, and it's not so much, I just worry about her in that environment for multiple of reasons. I worry about her getting to her car at the end of the night and all sorts of stuff. But no, one of the reasons I fell in love with her is because of her. She's a musician, and her outgoingness and that whole side of her, I found that attractive. And I found that attractive. I know other guys find that attractive. So it's coming to an understanding that, I trust my wife, though, just because other guys are out there.
I know how to protect myself too. So not too worried about that part of it. But I mean, also I would not put myself in a position like that if anybody in the band were somebody I'd have to worry about or anything. Like, these guys are upstanding, great guys. So I'm not worried about it at all. I know that they've got my back. They walk me out to my car anyway, that kind of stuff. But I also come to the understanding that it helps him if I just text him when I'm home, even though he's over here on the Western Slope and I'm over there. It helps him to know when he wakes up in the morning that I got home safe, and that's a big part of that. And just knowing that and not taking offense to him asking me to do that, it just is natural now. It's fine.
Was it a choice not to meet the band?
She got with this band after we had already moved over here. So she kind of fell into my accident. They were doing a gig in a closer town, and she did a step in for them, and they asked her to stay ever since then. And so I just never have met them because all their shows are over in Denver. We have our property here. It's hard to leave. We have the 2 dogs. I prefer not to leave.
Yeah.
I prefer not to go to Denver.
Why would I want to go to Denver?
I like it because I get to see my family. My whole family's over there. I get to see my best friend, who was my roommate at the time we met, and everything. That part of it is really good for me. And so I think he understands that too.
Which goes into the independence.
And we had to have a conversation about it, though. It was hard at first.
Sure.
It was. And we had to have a hard conversation at the kitchen table about it. And it was just being straight and upfront and honest about how we were feeling about it. And that helped a lot. It helped me understand where he was coming from on his side of things. And at that point is when I realized he had never met them before. So, oh my gosh, of course you would be feeling that way. I would too if it were the roles were reversed. So.
I think even if you did know him, I think you'd still feel that way. I think we naturally feel that way as human beings. That's what makes us monogamous,
right?
Animals or whatever we are. So.
I don't know if it's evolutionary or what. Me man, she my wife.
Well, I'm sure it goes in both directions.
Yeah.
And to anyone listening, when you live in a remote place like we do in this town of 900 people, the cities become very stressful. So we're not anti-cities, but you become that when you live out here. And the city just becomes so much to deal with. So if you're used to the city like we used to be, you don't really feel it. So we're not city haters, but yeah.
It is. I even deal with that when I go back. I mean, I pretty much stay at my parents' house or at a friend's house, and I don't go out and do things because I'm doing the shows. That's when I go out, and then when I'm done, I'm done. I don't want to go out and do all the other things there. It's a lot. Yeah,
it's overwhelming.
Well, I imagine that the experience that both of you had, and being cheated on in past relationships, that kind of helps. You have that comparison, what it feels like. So having that conversation was really important to do to set up those boundaries right up front.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not having those conversations is not healthy. It's normal to feel that way. And I think couples that don't tend to it actually succumb to it.
No.
They end up, it's really easy to, maybe you're not as close as you normally are, or you're in a fight or something. And, if someone gives you attention, it can be very very tempting. And if you don't fireproof your relationship,
Mhm.
we're all human. So you have to work at it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and being in the military, obviously you've seen a lot.
Yeah.
And, people who go through a lot in the military, it leaves scars
Yeah, definitely.
and it comes out.
Mhm.
And I was wondering how much of that has kind of impacted your relationship and how do you guys deal with that together?
Well, that is something that Angela's father is a veteran.
Hmm.
She is a military kid, military brat, grew up all over the world. For 18 years of her life, different military bases, through Desert Storm, seen friends, fathers go and not come back. She just seems to have an understanding of the military life and gets it. She knows when I'm angry, and she knows it's not her. Some certain things can just set me off, and she knows that, and just knows when to just be there and be quiet.
But if I don't catch the cues, he's good at letting me know. Can I just have 5 minutes?
Hmm.
And then I have to know that I can't be offended by that.
I can tell her it's something I've always been able to do in our relationship. Like, hey, can you just give me 5 minutes? Something I'm very proud of in our relationship is that we've always been able to communicate about anything. It's been very helpful all along the way. You're feeling something, why keep it bottled up? And
Yeah.
that's something we both had to work on at the start, but I think we're pretty good at it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why keep it bottled up?
Yeah. I think it's reciprocal in the fact that I've been able to help him see what the home front looked like when he was gone. His parents were in Slovakia when he was deployed, and what some of the feelings they might have had during all of that, and then vice versa, trying to, him being able to tell
I was
me
in
what
my
he
own
needs to
world
tell
for
me.
years, so I didn't know how it affected other people.
What was your reason for joining?
I actually joined the military when I was 17. My parents had to sign me in. 9/11 happened. It was my generation's war. And I had always wanted to join the military. I was one of those kids, I'd run obstacle courses and I had camouflage. And my brother and I had a little spy club thing. We sneak out at night. I always kind of enjoyed the military. Thought I would go that route. But then, 17, 18 years old, you're a man, and 9/11 happens. And it changes you. I went and told the recruiter that I wanted to sign up. They didn't have to do any recruiting for me. But because I was so young, my parents actually had to sign me in. So in a time of war, just realizing what that put my mom through. Sorry, Mom. But from 17, 18 on, I was in the military in Iraq. I was in Iraq, then I was not. And so that's all I thought about was just surviving. So not really knowing what it put my family through.
Does it mean today what it meant when you were 17 and you enlisted?
As what do you mean?
Well, when I was in it, it felt, like you were trying to make this world a better place for the people, your kids or whatever that, and securing the freedoms that we have. And then it shifted for me and it became about something I didn't believe in anymore.
Well,
and I
absolutely.
didn't believe that was the case, that we were fighting for a good cause anymore.
Absolutely. When you join at 17 because terrorists are crashing airplanes into buildings, and then you go to invading a country in the middle of the night with night vision goggles, driving through a border that the engineers just blew up, and invade a country. From seeing that, where we felt we liberated those people. They would throw roses at us as we drove by. America, go George Bush, go George Bush. Oh man, they thought that guy was God coming to liberate them. And we, as a 17, 18-year-old kid, just being naive, being like, yeah, we're coming to liberate Iraq. But then, of course, as we've seen over the years, the evidence comes out, right? Maybe we weren't there for the best of reasons. I personally try not to dwell on that. When I joined, I thought I was going to Afghanistan. Iraq started kicking off when I was in basic training. I was 4 months. I was in the military. I was in basic training for 4 months, had 3 weeks off, and then I went over to Kuwait, met my platoon in the middle of the desert. We sat out there for a month, and then we invaded another country. I was E1 private, been in the military for 5 months, 6 months when we invaded Iraq.
In front of the front lines because he was a scout.
Second time I ever drove with night vision goggles. First time was for maybe 2 minutes in basic training.
Yeah, there's nothing that can compare you or
No.
prepare you for that.
No. But
You know, we always say that, you know, we get wounded through relationship and we heal through relationship. And us being a little bit older than you guys, you know, something happens when you get into your 50s. Your brain changes. To me, it felt like morphing into the Hulk sometimes, you know, and I would imagine that there's even more potential for that healing to take place as you guys, you know, continue to feel that security and that bond with each other. And your brain changes. I mean, I don't think we knew what we were in for until we got there.
No. And I think if anyone knew, they would run the opposite direction.
Yeah.
well, now I'm scared.
I've literally been warning him recently.
It's quite a journey.
I'm getting there, and I've noticed changes. You know, little things, nothing big, but I'm like, I've talked to other women, and I know it's coming, and I'm really sorry ahead of time of whatever might happen in the next, 5 to 8 years, or whatever. So,
You know, I think for me, the profound thing was, you know, you get some invasive thinking, and there's a moment where you realize that the crazy thoughts and the truth, and the truth, then it weaves back through your whole life. Everyone who lied to you about something and your gut was right, you're like, oh my God, I was right the whole time. And I let myself get talked into things. And then you just step into a wisdom that's really incredible. But the crazy stuff comes first because your brain chemistry is kind of all over the place. And it's like they come out of nowhere and it's like, oh.
Got to purge all the bad stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think you know how that goes, huh? Yeah.
Purging the bad stuff? I guess so.
Part of the process, maybe.
I'm personally looking forward to changing. I've, enjoyed the process of growing up. My teen years were great. My 20s were great.
So was mine.
30s, man, my couple years after the military. Whew.
Well, 50s are awesome. They really are. They're even better. I haven't gotten to a place where I'm like, where I am isn't better than anywhere I've been.
Yeah, I think we have the same experience that our 20s
were horrible.
Yeah. And even, childhood and teens and all that stuff was terrible. So this is really an awesome place to be, actually.
Yeah. Interestingly, I spent 13 years in the military and I never had to do anything. And I feel like a guardian angel, like something knew that, and when Desert Storm happened, they were supposed to activate our company and they misdialed by one number and activated our sister company.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was a single mom, and to go through that as a single mom and potentially leave him with no one. That's when I was like, if it was making a better world for him, I could justify it, but I didn't believe it was. And so yeah.
Well, you didn't have to make that choice.
Nope.
So that's
No, none of the choices. It just really kind of happened. And
Well, I sure got what I asked for.
You sure did.
yeah, I didn't grow up thinking I was going to go in the military, but it was such a profound experience for my life because, I have 8 siblings and we just lacked structure and discipline and that self-esteem that you get from doing crazy things like rappelling off of 45-foot tower or something that you didn't know you could do. And I was never exposed to a lot of that kind of stuff. And so it greatly impacted who I've become.
Absolutely.
But it was kind of made like, I need to do something with my life. I didn't think college was going to be the deal and I didn't have any money. So I did it, and, but yeah, I I never saw nothing.
So how'd you guys make the decision of going from a pretty urban environment, urban city, to out here, rural Colorado?
We kind of knew we wanted to eventually end up outside of the city.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to get out for sure. But there was one moment, if you want to take it to one moment, we were sitting in traffic on the interstate, and somewhere that was supposed to take us 15 minutes, it was going to take us an hour and a half. We just looked at each other and said, what are we doing?
In my family, a lot of my family is actually in rural eastern Colorado. They're up in like Greeley, Briggsdale, and east of there. So they're up in the eastern plains and always been rural. So kind of grew up around it a little bit. I was still city girl, but did grow up around it a lot with my family. And so I just knew it was something I was interested in. We both just love the outdoors and hunting and hiking and backpacking and all of it. It just made sense. It is harder for me than it is for him because I am a social person. So having friends and family close by is really helpful. And but also, I see my family every other month, which is huge. Because when I lived in Nashville, I saw them once a year. And that was it. I came home for Christmas and always been super close to my family growing up. Because in the military, moving around a lot, it was just me, my mom, my dad, and my sister. And that's all you had. People would come visit and stuff, but at the core of it, those 4 people is all you had. And so kind of grew up with that feeling, living in England and stuff like that too. So it wasn't that big of a leap for us, honestly. I work in Delta, so it's not that big of a deal. That's the big city now. I go to Junction, that's
Right.
the real
Well, they do
big
have a
city.
couple
really
stoplights there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I don't miss it as much as I thought I would. I thought I'd have a harder time than I have.
Sometimes I worry about her missing it because she's such a social butterfly. And I love it here so much.
Yeah.
But she assures me she loves it. And you really seem to. You got your community going on and made friends. And we're making a life out here.
Yeah, I think we felt the same way. This is completely foreign to us.
Yeah.
And we are very social people, and we knew no one.
Mm-hmm.
We were like,
We didn't either.
how's
when we
that
got
going to
here.
go?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we just keep collecting people.
Yeah, you do.
It's kind of who we are. So it's very enjoyable. And I think living the way we live, it's like everyone has a lot of space, but you need each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Absolutely.
you learn to just kind of tolerate each other's differences, which feels really nice because people are tolerating yours. So, and I think that's how we're supposed to live in a little village like that. And
Yeah.
it's very rewarding and I think it feels great to live out here.
Absolutely.
And I think it's been really good for him in the aspect of, because of the way that he's grown up and the experiences he had in the military, he's not good at asking for help, like ever.
Too bad you had that cistern thing going on.
Yeah, that's what I was
Still
talking about.
going
It's
on.
still going on. But he has a hard time asking for help with things like that. And he's like, I can do it myself. And he can. He can do anything. He's just really handy like that. But sometimes it's just nice to know that somebody's got your back. You're not alone anymore. That's what I keep telling him.
Yeah, if people notice, they'll just show up and help.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is
If
cool.
anything, moving out here has been such a blessing for me personally. It's almost divine intervention. We made the decision to come out here. God knows the desires of our hearts. I had decided, you know what? I was going to look for a new job. Pulled up Indeed. The very first job right there was one out here that was would have been a transfer within my trade. And so we moved out here. I took a promotion, got the job. We needed a place to live. We
Nobody will
got approved
rent
for
to
a
anybody.
mortgage.
Yeah. Nobody will rent to anybody with dogs. So that was quickly out the door.
I was getting ready to come out here. It's like, okay, I got to go start that job. So I was going to come out here. She was going to stay in Denver for a couple of weeks. And it was like, we better look at Zillow one last time, see if there's anything. Literally said, okay, one last time. Open up the computer. Posted 1 minute ago was this property down here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it was divine intervention the whole way. And it's been so good for me. I've found a sense of peace, a peace like I've never felt before.
Yeah.
I feel a very spiritual connection out here. Can't really convey.
Convey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can't really convey the view we have here over the radio, but we have an amazing view. And there's moments that I look at that view and I just thank God.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for bringing us here. Thank you for keeping me alive.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't really look at those mountains and not think of something greater than yourself. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
So last question. What is it your partner does that you know they love you?
He vacuums.
She's told me right from the start, all you got to do is vacuum. That's it.
So, everybody talks about the love languages, right? My love language is acts of service, big time. So I always joke that if you want to show me you love me, just vacuum for me before I come home. And it's things like that. And he does those kind of things all the time for me. And it just makes me feel so loved. And then he'll also just out of the blue text me saying, "You're my best friend," or just little things like that. And it just literally makes me melt in my desk chair at work and everything. But he's really great at just, telling me how he feels and hearing it and everything. He'll make a little sign for me that says, "I love you to pieces" for my garden, and little things like that lets me know he paid attention,
For her, it's the little things. She does the little things. I'm going to get up 4:00 in the morning to go fishing. She's going to get up with me and cook me breakfast. And that right there says it all. I mean,
food.
Well, I think that's huge because getting up at 4 a.m. that's not our jam at all.
Angela
That's
puts
not
me
our
first,
thing.
and it's visible. I see it. She puts me above herself. She'll work all 8-hour shifts and come home and starts cooking dinner. She doesn't have to do that.
Well, it's not like we have Uber Eats.
I know. Somebody has to cook, and I'm not
Somebody's
good at
gotta
it. So there's that. We'd be having a lot of frozen pizza if I was cooking.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just that she shows me that she loves me every single day.
Oh,
People have been sharing their stories since the beginning of time to bond and heal and grow. And we hope that by you guys sharing your story, it's enriched your lives and the lives of our listeners.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah, definitely.
You talked a lot more than I expected you to.
Yeah,
so.
no, she's the talker in the relationship. I don't know what happened today.
Well, we want to thank all of you for joining us today on Couple Synergy. Our passion is in helping couples and people have happy and healthy relationships. And this podcast gives us a fun way of bringing our knowledge and expertise to you, our listeners. For all of you listening, please let us know how you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, please email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs such as Relationship 101, the home study course, the next Couples Relationship Enhancement Weekend, and our premier couples coaching program called Couple to Couple, look us up online at couplesynergy.com.
And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
Until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.